Longlegs, the latest, or one of the latest, Nicolas Cage lined films. He doesn't headline it, though. He's just one of the stars. Longlegs is fascinating, especially from a filmmaking perspective. Right away, as soon as this film opens, you get the experience that this is going to be a little bit artsy. It's going to take itself a little bit more artistically. This isn't going to be something like The Bone Collector or Kiss the Girls that you have from back in the 90s, 80s, and whatnot, based off serial killer catchings and all that good stuff. Those are great films, by the way. You should definitely check them out. But this takes itself in the veins of one of those types of movies, but shot like a horror film. And one film that, in particular, that I like to think about is one starring Eric Bana. I think it was called Deliver Us from Evil. Yeah, this one right here. Deliver Us from Evil, an excellent film, by the way, starring Eric Bana and Edgar Ramirez. It's about a cop that goes after some supernatural type of killer, investigating bizarre experiences, so as to say. This is like if Deliver Us from Evil met something like The Black Phone. We open this film in a very interesting way, a type of flashback into I believe the 1970s, and the aesthetic of the surrounding the picture itself. There's an aura of uneasiness throughout the entire picture. There's this psychedelic almost feeling of trippiness. People aren't exactly acting like normal people. There's something going on with some of these people, and that's making them act a little differently, maybe. There's definitely an influence throughout the whole picture, and especially when we open, we get to see Nicolas Cage we don't see his face, we just see the bottom part of his body as he talks to a child. And Nicolas Cage plays a character who kidnaps and, well, I don't say he kidnaps, but he's responsible for the deaths of children, young girls, roughly with birthdays that are the 14th, and within 6 days of the 14th of the month, I believe. Or the birthday is the 14th of the month, but the deaths of the families and all that stuff are within 6 days of the 14th of a month. And so the FBI is hunting him down, manhunt, to hunt down the Longlegs guy. It is very... I'm definitely going to need to watch this a second time, maybe even a third time. I'm probably going to need to look up some more lore about what's going on, but this is just from a very first experience, from watching it one time. I can tell you, at least from a filmmaking perspective, like the camera, how everything looks, how the shots look. This is an interesting film, and it's not shot like Bone Collector, Kiss the Girls. It's shot like Deliver Us from Evil. It's shot like It Follows. It's shot like one of those elevated type of films where we have what's this? What am I trying? What word am I looking for? In horror films nowadays, we have been conditioned to expect the phenomenon called the jump scare. The jump scare is an extremely overtired thing in film. It's just something that startles you. And since we tend to expect to be startled in a horror picture, we tend to be looking in the void spaces in a lot of these shots. And there are a lot of wide shots. They linger in these wide shots because the filmmaker, because the camera, the guy, they all know that we have been conditioned over 20 plus years to expect jump scares, to expect typical horror procedures like that, to startle you, to shock you. And it doesn't happen. There isn't a single jump scare in this entire picture, but it is shot where you are expecting it, where you are looking for it, where you're constantly looking over your shoulder, wondering if something's going to come out of the void space. It is very tense. It is very anxiety-inducing when you watch this picture. You feel the unease that the main characters feel, that there's something always watching you, something always lurking off into the shadows, something that knows where you live, something that can get into your house, but you cannot see them. You cannot find them. That is how this picture feels. It feels uncomfortable in a lot of ways, and that is fantastic because that is the atmosphere that the film is trying to portray. That is the atmosphere that the story wants you to experience, and it does it swimmingly. I may not like a lot of the dialogue. It kind of feels a little bit Shyamalan-y, what's the word I'm looking for? Tacky. Maybe tacky? Is that the right word? Some of the dialogue from some of the acting kind of feels like an alien has come down to Earth and has assumed human shape. It doesn't understand human emotions yet, but it has assumed human form and is speaking human words, but it's not exactly emoting properly the way a normal human should. And that is the way a lot of the characters, certain characters are acting, which gives you a sort of uncomfortable vibe that something might be going on here. And if that is intentional, then that is perfect. They definitely did what they intended to do there then, because that's exactly the type of vibe that I saw for a lot of these characters. The story does not feel like a Silence of the Lambs thing to me, because Silence of the Lambs isn't supernatural. This is a supernatural picture. A lot like Deliver Us from Evil type of aesthetic. At least the movie. The Deliver Us from Evil, the actual events, it's based off real events. The real events obviously aren't supernatural, but they made the events in the movie supernatural. They made the guy actually possessed by something dark, something devious, and they showed you all that stuff. And there's an excellent song by The Doors, and they're breaking through to the other side. Man, it's a really good song. Definitely check that out. But in that type of Deliver Us from Evil veins, that's where Longlegs is coming in. It is very uncomfortable, and you may not expect that ending. Another thing I will say with Nicolas Cage is, if you don't know he's in this film, you may not recognize him. The makeup is fantastic. He kind of looks like Marilyn Manson a little bit. It's a good. I'm definitely going to give the big top recommendation. Go out and take a look at this picture. It is fantastic.